the best player by a mile, by quite a lot in this game, was Lauren, or not to Lauren Betts, Jesus. I think Lauren Betts might have won MVP, but Gabriella Jacz was the best player in this game. Not only that, we are seeing something big. We are seeing something big. And what we are seeing is that Gabriella Jacz has a good old cosign by the one and only Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark. How many players has Caitlin Clark spoken about on social media? Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah.
Caitlin Clark just shattered her silence with a move that has sent the Indiana Fever front office into a complete tailspin. It wasn't a formal press release, or a private meeting behind closed doors, but a public power play that signals a massive shift in the league's power dynamics. By officially co-signing a specific player during the heat of the championship season, Clark has effectively issued a draft demand that the franchise cannot afford to ignore. This isn't just a rookie being excited about a new teammate, it is the most influential player in the world drawing a line in the sand. The message is loud, clear, and absolutely undeniable. Caitlin Clark is now the one calling the shots in Indiana.
Now, a good old cosign by the one and only Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark. How many players has Caitlin Clark spoken about on social media? Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah, Lexi Hull. And what is common with those three players? They are three of the guarantees. They are three of the guarantees for the Fever next year. But Gabriella Jacz is expected to be there around 10. She is expected to be there around 10. And
the player at the center of this storm is Gabriella Jacz, a name that has suddenly rocketed to the top of the Fever's priority list. While the NCAA championship was unfolding, Clark wasn't just watching as a fan, she was scouting for her own future success. Jacz delivered a performance for the ages, and Clark wasted no time in letting the world know exactly what she thought about it. In the high-stakes world of professional basketball, a cosign from a superstar is never just a friendly gesture, it is a calculated, strategic move designed to influence the draft board. Clark is effectively hand-picking the supporting cast she believes will help her bring a championship to Indiana.
She is expected to be there around 10. She is expected to be there around 10. And I'm going to be honest. She could be a near perfect pickup for the Fever. Why? Because she is a competent shooter. I'm not going to say she's a great shooter. People will be like, oh, look at her percentages. I mean this. If you go purely on percentages from Gabriella Jacz, she is basically going to be she was so much better when she was playing, or when she was in non-conference play. But if you look at
this situation is drawing immediate and intense comparisons to some of the most famous power moves in basketball history. Think back to when LeBron James was in Miami and famously tweeted about Shabazz Napier, or his time in Cleveland when he put his weight behind Colin Sexton. When the franchise player speaks up about a specific prospect, it puts an immense amount of pressure on the general manager and the scouting department. It is a wink-wink, nudge-nudge to the front office that says, if you want to keep your superstar happy, you better find a way to get this person on the roster. Clark is utilizing her massive platform to ensure she has the personnel she needs to dominate.
I think Indiana, if Neepkins is on the board and Jacz, I think they're probably going to go Jacz, Neepkins, Martin. That would be my projection for the top 3 picks that Indiana would like to make. If Jacz is on the board, first of all, Jacz fits. Second of all, you've got a Caitlin Clark cosign. When you've got the Caitlin Clark cosign, it's a big one, especially when Jacz is there or thereabouts going to be there for the Fever. She's not dumb. This is LeBron James with Miami tweeting about Shabazz Napier.
To understand why this is so shocking, you have to look at the players Clark has already publicly supported. She has spoken about Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hull, who are essentially the 3 absolute guarantees for the Fever's core next year. By adding Gabriella Jacz to that very short list, Clark is essentially defining the team's inner circle before she even plays her first official game. She is identifying the connective pieces that she knows will mesh with her unique style of play. This isn't a random selection, it is a tactical decision by a player who understands that her legacy depends on the talent surrounding her on the court.
Going to be there for the Fever. Like, she's not dumb. This is LeBron James with Miami tweeting about Shabazz Napier. This is LeBron James in Cleveland tweeting about Colin Sexton. It's not necessarily that, oh, she controls the franchise. It's that these teams will do what their franchise player wants. They will. To an extent. Like, they're not, I don't know if they do anything crazy, but like, to an extent, they will do what their franchise player wants. So what we will probably see is, we are almost certainly going to see, if she's on the board, Gabriella Jacz is going to defeat.
The draft projections make this move even more fascinating and controversial. Currently, Gabriella Jacz is expected to be available around the 10th pick, which puts her right in the strike zone for teams looking to bolster their depth. Many analysts believe she is a near-perfect fit for Indiana because of her versatility and high basketball IQ. She might not be labeled as an elite, lights-out shooter by the traditional scouts, but she is a highly competent one who knows how to find her spots. Clark clearly sees something in Jacz's game that others might be overlooking, and she is willing to stake her reputation on that intuition to get the deal done.
She was absolutely unconscious from three. And here's her three-point shooting. 1 of 3, 4 of 7, 2 of 6, 2 of 3, 0 of 4, 3 of 5, 3 of 5 of 6, 1 of 3, 3 of 4, 5 of 6, 2 of 5. And then suddenly she gets into conference play. 2 of 2 of 2 of 3. Hits them here. 2 of 1 of 1, 1 of 4, 1 of 4, 1 of 3, 1 of 5, 1 of 1, 2 of 7. And then it took till the Big East tournament before she shot 50% from 3 in a game again. And I don't know if she's that much, like, if she's that great.
If you dig into the numbers, you can see why Clark is so high on this potential draft pick. During the non-conference play, Jacz was absolutely unconscious from beyond the arc, putting up shooting percentages that would make any point guard salivate. Even when she hit the tougher conference schedule, she remained a consistent threat, showing she can handle the pressure of elite competition. She recently put up a massive double-double in a championship-level environment, proving she has the big game DNA that Clark values above all else. This isn't just about raw stats, it is about finding players who don't blink when the lights are at their brightest.
This isn't like a random thought. This isn't like, oh, Caitlin's just tweeting this because she's watching the game and nothing really matters, it's not going to affect anything. No, like, Jacz had previously been mocked at Fever. And a lot of people have been talking about Jacz. A lot of people have been talking about the UCLA players. And, like, them being drafted. I stand by this. If somebody drafts Dugalich in the first round, that's not a smart decision. Like, that's the one where I'm like, look, don't. I think Dugalich or Ledger Walker, like, I'm not taking.
The Indiana Fever front office is now in a very delicate position as the draft approaches. They have their own internal mock drafts and scouting reports, likely featuring names like Gianni Pickens or Lauren Betts at the top of their board. However, when your franchise savior publicly endorses someone else, your entire strategy has to be re-evaluated. If Pickens and Jacz are both on the board when Indiana picks, the pressure to choose Clark's preference will be astronomical. This is the LeBron effect manifesting in the WNBA, for perhaps the first time at this scale. The team must decide if they prioritize their own scouting, or the wishes of their star.
Ledger Walker, like, I'm not taking either of them in the first round. But, like, Kiki Rice, Gianni Pickens, Lauren Betts, and Gabriella Jacz are guaranteed first round picks. And, yeah, I think that'll be a pretty crazy year for UCLA, getting 4 first round picks. And the fact is, like, the draft could literally be, the first round could be 50% UCLA, 50% like international players, which is mad. So anyway, yeah, that's the video. I'll see you guys.
There is a legitimate argument to be made that Clark is acting as more than just a player, she's acting as a co-general manager. Some might see this as overstepping, but in today's sports landscape, the elite stars always have a seat at the table. For a team like the Fever, which has struggled for years to find its identity, listening to Clark's input might be the smartest thing they can do. She understands the spacing, the timing, and the chemistry required to make her passing and scoring effective. If she believes Jacz is the missing piece to that puzzle, the front office would be taking a massive risk by going in a completely different direction. Looking at the broader draft class, there is a sense of urgency surrounding this particular pick. Many experts are suggesting that this year's draft doesn't have the same ultra depth that we saw in 2023, or what we expect to see in 2025. Aside from a few standout names, there aren't many players who project as immediate, day-one superstars. Because of this, finding a high-level connective piece like Jacz becomes even more critical. She represents a safe but high-upside bet in a draft that feels top-heavy. Clark is smart enough to recognize that a solid, reliable teammate is worth more than a high-risk project who might never pan out. The UCLA connection is also something that cannot be ignored in this developing drama. There is a very real possibility that the first round of the draft could be dominated by UCLA players, with up to 4 potential first-round picks coming from that single program. Names like Kiki Rice and Lauren Betts are frequently mentioned in the top 5, but Jacz has been the one consistently mocked to the Fever. This isn't a random occurrence, it's a reflection of the high-level system she comes from. Clark knows that players from these elite programs are pro-ready and can adapt quickly to the speed of the professional game, which is exactly what Indiana needs. Critics might point to Jacz's shooting slumps during conference play as a reason for concern, but the tape tells a different story. In the Big East tournament, in the later stages of the season, she regained her form, hitting crucial shots and showing a much quicker trigger. Defensively, her size allows her to be a versatile defender who can switch on to multiple positions, which is a massive asset in the modern game. While she might not be the primary scoring option on a team with Clark, she doesn't need to be, she just needs to be the player who makes the right pass, sets the hard screen, and hits the open corner 3 when the defense collapses. The draft is always a gamble, but Clark is trying to stack the odds in her favor as much as possible. She knows that the transition to the professional level is incredibly difficult, even for a generational talent like herself. By surrounding herself with players she trusts and respects, she is creating a support system that will allow her to flourish. This draft pick isn't just about adding talent, it's about building a culture. Clark has spent her entire college career being the focal point of every scouting report, and she knows that having a reliable secondary option is the only way to beat the double team she'll face. Wait until you see how this affects the rest of the Fever's free agency plans. If the team follows through and drafts Jacz, it signals a specific direction for the roster's development. They are looking for high IQ, versatile players who can play multiple roles. This could mean they move away from some of their older veterans to make room for a younger, more dynamic core that can grow alongside Clark for the next decade. The ripple effects of one demand are massive, influencing everything from salary cap management to playing time rotations. The entire league is watching to see if Indiana will actually bend to the will of their new star. What makes this situation even more shocking is the timing of it all. Most rookies wait until they have established themselves in the league before they start trying to influence front office decisions. Caitlin Clark, however, is not your average rookie. She is entering the league with more leverage and more eyes on her than perhaps any player in history. She knows that her window to make an impact is now, and she isn't interested in waiting 3 or 4 years for the team to rebuild the right way. She wants to win immediately, and she's using every tool at her disposal to make sure that happens. There is also a subtle message here about the existing roster. When Clark focuses her attention on a specific prospect, it sends a message to the current players about what she expects in terms of performance. She is looking for toughness, consistency, and a winning pedigree. By highlighting Jacz double-double in a high-stakes championship game, she is setting a standard for the locker room. It's a way of saying that talent is great, but performance under pressure is what matters most. This is leadership in its most raw and public form, and it's a clear indication that the culture in Indiana is changing. The comparison to LeBron James' influence on the Cavaliers and Heat is more than just hyperbole, it represents a shift toward player empowerment that is finally reaching its peak in women's basketball. For too long, players were expected to just show up and play whatever role they were given. Now, the stars are realizing that they have the power to shape their own environments. Clark's cosign is a masterclass in using soft power to achieve a hard result. She didn't have to demand a trade or make a scene, she simply told the world who she liked, and now the Fever are under the microscope. If Indiana decides to ignore Clark's preference and goes with a different player like Gianni Pickens, or even a surprise international prospect, the fallout could be significant. It would create an immediate rift between the star player and the management before the season even begins. On the other hand, if they do draft Jack and she struggles, the blame will fall squarely on Clark's shoulders. It's a high-reward, high-risk scenario for everyone involved. But if they hit on this pick and Jack becomes the perfect complement to Clark's game, the Fever could become a powerhouse overnight, fulfilling the promise of this new era. Let's talk about the specific mechanics of Jack's game that make her such a tantalizing prospect for Clark. She is a great connective piece, meaning she excels at the small things that keep an offense moving. In Clark's high-octane system, you need players who can make quick decisions and don't stall the ball. Jacz has shown an ability to read the floor and make the extra pass, which is essential when playing with a point guard who sees the game 3 steps ahead of everyone else. She is the type of player who makes everyone around her better, even if her individual stats don't always jump off the page. The draft board is always fluid, and things can change in an instant, but the Clark factor is now a permanent variable. Other teams might even try to jump ahead of Indiana to snags just to spite them, or to force a trade. The value of that 10th pick has suddenly skyrocketed because everyone knows it's the one Clark is watching. This adds a layer of intrigue to the draft that we rarely see. Every scout in the league is now rewatching Jack as a film, trying to see exactly what Caitlin saw. It has turned a relatively under-the-radar prospect into the most talked-about name in the draft. Beyond the immediate draft implications, this move tells us a lot about Caitlin Clark's mindset as she enters the professional ranks. She isn't coming in with a "just happy to be here" attitude, she is coming in to dominate, to lead, and to win. She is already thinking about roster construction and team chemistry, while most people are still focused on her scoring records. This level of maturity and foresight is what separates the great players from the legendary ones. She understands that her individual brilliance will only take her so far. She needs a team that is built specifically to maximize her unique talents. As we get closer to the draft, the tension in the Indiana front office will only continue to build. They are under immense pressure to get this right, and the spotlight has never been brighter. Every move they make will be analyzed through the lens of whether or not it supports their new superstar. This shocking demand isn't a one-time event, it's the beginning of a new chapter where the players have a voice in the room. The silence has been broken, the line has been drawn, and now the ball is in Indiana's court to see if they will follow the lead of the greatest prospect in a generation. The ripple effect of this cosign will be felt for years to come. Regardless of who the Fever ultimately select, it marks the moment that Caitlin Clark officially transitioned from a college sensation to a professional powerhouse with real organizational influence. Whether you see it as a bold leadership move or a risky demand, you cannot deny that it has changed the conversation around the draft. The Indiana Fever are no longer just a team with the number 1 pick, they are a team operating under the guidance of a star who knows exactly what she wants. The future of the franchise is being written right now. Ultimately, this situation proves that the WNBA is entering an era of unprecedented star power and player influence. Caitlin Clark isn't just changing the game on the court, she's changing how teams are built and how players interact with management. By breaking her silence and making her draft preferences known, she has set a new standard for what it means to be a franchise player. The Indiana Fever have a chance to build something special, but they must decide if they are ready to share the keys to the kingdom. One thing is certain, the draft will never be the same again after this bombshell.